Yo, what's up, gamers? It's your boy, and welcome back to Af-Rui-Ka. Today, I'm getting back into the arid animal pack, and I'm building for the black rhino. And as you can see here, I've already started the speed build because I kind of forgot to even record. I didn't even open up OBS. I just started building stuff, and then I was like, oh, I kind of forgot to record any of this. But what I built so far wasn't actually that important. It was just like the rock wall in the background, as well as this shelter building. At least the frame of this shelter building. I actually remembered to record the decoration part of this shelter building. And as you can probably see, this is going to be very North African style building. I just Google searched North African architecture, and I found not even a real building. I found a miniature of a building and I was like, hey, that looks pretty good, so I'm gonna use that. In the past, I've been kind of hesitant to even look up architecture. I don't know, because I felt like this super strong urge to have everything in my build be uniquely me, quote unquote. So I just didn't really look up reference images, and I still don't really try to copy buildings one for one. I kind of try to just look at stuff and then take inspiration from that and make something that kind of looks similar to it but not quite the same, which works better, to be honest, than being so set on creating everything on my own specifically without any help from any outside sources. I don't know, kind of I guess, prideful thing, unnecessarily prideful. A technique I wanted to highlight here is, when you select multiple items and you try and duplicate them and then move them together, it puts those items on the world axis instead of on the axis of the items that you're trying to move. Oh goodness, yawn. So this can be frustrating when you're not building on the world axis, which is something I frequently forget to do. Which this building, I again did not build on the world axis. I just built on the axis that I was trying to put it on. So anyway, basically what I did to actually get to duplicate the items and move them the way I wanted them to is you just have to take a grid prop and add that, like a grid prop that is part of the grid that you are working on. So what I did is I just duplicated the grid from the main part of the building, separated it from that, and then added that to the group for the stuff that I was trying to build. And then I was able to use that grid prop to actually manipulate the other pieces that I was trying to move in the actual axis that I wanted them to. I said a lot of words there, and if you rewind the video and you look at what I'm talking about, you'll see. if you didn't catch anything that I was saying, you'll see what I was talking about. Anyways, then I just start going crazy with the decals, because if you want a building to look old, use decals. Just go nuts with them. Use all the decals. You can use them all, and they're recolorable, so you can not just use the bricks and stuff. Oh god, I need to stop recording these at 10 o'clock at night. But it's I work a full-time job, and then I come home and I have a dog to take care of, so what can you do? Oh, you can actually see me just here using the technique I was mentioning earlier, where you use a grid prop to move multiple other props when you need to get them aligned to a certain grid. But anyways, decals, use them very often. And then I use these bricks to sort of outline the corners of the building, because I don't know, they just looked kind of raw and kind of naked. So I just had to put something on the corners to sort of outline it. And then this is the end result of that building. I think it looks pretty good. I don't know, I've always kind of struggled with buildings in general, so that's the best I could do. Okay, but here I use a technique with free build that I'm actually like kind of proud of, that I had this idea and I pulled it off. So using free build, you can't do this normally. I was able to just make the natural, the bare paths, and then I was able to turn the railings on, and I was able to get this like double fence look going on. So there's the fence going along the habitat and a fence going along the path to keep the humans and the animals separate. And then using a bunch of rocks, I was able to make it so that the rhinos can't walk here, because they can't just walk through these fences normally. But like, I just really like the way this turned out. I use the same kind of fence look in the camel habitat, but I made that all with like actual pieces. But here I was just able to use the fence pieces, or not fence pieces. I was able to use the fences, the whatever they're called, the fence. Man, I really can't even think of the word right now. I'm struggling with words lately. I think I'm getting dumber as time goes on. Fences. That's a fence. It took me a while to come up with that word. That's a fence. Anyways, that aside, so I start on like foliage work here, and I always struggle with foliage because like the thing with foliage is I want to use like a bunch of it to make the habitat look nice, but I never know how much to use. And then here I'm using the flower beds, and I'm turning them upside down to get that sort of dried ground texture that I've been seeing Leaf doing lately. And so I wanted to do that, but then I ended up just like covering these up with foliage, so it didn't really matter anyways. Back to foliage. So I always end up using like a lot, and it ends up like not being very realistic a lot of the time, especially with like a hoofstock enclosure. You know, these big herbivores, they like to eat plants, and so you put plants in their enclosure, and surprise, surprise, they eat them, and then the enclosure ends up empty. So what I have been trying to do is I like go and I just Google search whatever animal I'm trying to build for, and I just look up like exhibits for that animal, and I see like kind of how much plants there are in most of these animals' habitats. And so for rhinos, either it seems like their habitats are just like straight sand, which is boring, or it's just like really short grass that the rhinos have obviously been eating, and so the grass is kept very short by the rhinos. You see this pretty often in hoofstock enclosures in general, is it's just like either bare sand / dirt or very short grass, because the animals eat it right down almost to the roots. And I think it really depends on how much space there is in the habitat. If there isn't enough space for the animal, then they probably are just going to eat all the plants, and there's not going to be anything left. It's just going to be dirt. If it's a decent sized enclosure, then they may actually just cut down the grass basically down to the roots, but they won't completely destroy the grass, so it'll grow back, and they'll have more. So and then to finish off this enclosure, black rhinos are known typically for being very solitary, very territorial animals. And so to house two rhinos together, as I'm trying to do here, normally you would want them to be like separated at least a little bit. But interestingly enough, I actually watched a documentary recently where they actually discovered that while black rhinos are very solitary during the day, during the nighttime, black rhinos will actually congregate in large groups. And they had the whole thing on footage with like infrared cameras to see what was going on in the night. Just all these black rhinos in a big group. And like, this is something that we didn't even know until recently, or at least the scientific world didn't know until recently. We all just assumed that black rhinos were these angry, solitary animals that just didn't associate with hardly anything outside of like breeding and raising young. But as it turns out, they actually are social sometimes. So anyways, I wanted to just put like gates to divide the habitats in half for like most of the time, I guess, is how it would work. And then so you could actually like, you'd keep them separate, but then you'd allow the male and the female to like interact, obviously, to breed, to try and, you know, create more offspring for breeding programs. However, for the sake of this habitat and just keeping it looking nice, I decided to just leave the gates open 24/7 because why not? You know, it's a zoo game, and so you might as well just let them do whatever they want. But anyways, we're already at the end of this one. I've been making my videos like longer, like 15 to 20, when I want them to be closer to like 10 minutes. So hopefully I'll be able to keep these videos a little shorter. I've been realizing that when you're making a speed build, you don't actually have to add all the footage of the speed build in. You kind of just want to show the parts that would be, I guess, instructional or interesting to your audience. At least that's what I have taken in from watching other people's speed builds. And I'm kind of new to the scene in general, so I'm just, you know, learning. I'm just figuring stuff out. But yeah, that's all for now, really. If you like the video, then feel free to like it and subscribe and all those positive buttons that you can push. And that's all for now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.